The following program is brought to you by the League of Women Voters, Oakland area. The League of Women Voters is a national, nonpartisan organization established to encourage citizen participation in government. It never supports or opposes any political party or candidate. The statements and opinions of the candidates are presented in the interest of public service and in no way are to be construed as endorsement thereof by the League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters takes no responsibility for any of the views or facts stated by the candidates.
Thank you, everyone, and good evening. I'll start by reading the ground rules and policies for the candidates forum for the audience as well as our candidates. Candidate forums are regulated by federal and state election laws and regulations. In addition, important Internal Revenue Service rules apply to forums sponsored by organizations designated as 501c3 by the IRS. League-sponsored forums are governed still further by the League's own nonpartisan policy. The League of Women Voters will mail an invitation to all qualified candidates to participate in a forum for the League that it is sponsoring. Write-ins who have qualified before the date of the forum will be included. The League will not support or oppose any candidate or political party. The League may choose not to sponsor a forum for an office. The League may cancel a forum of only one candidate if there was only one candidate participating. The League may cancel during the forum if candidates and/or audience are not following these ground rules. The moderator will be selected by the League of Women Voters. The moderator will review the ground rules with the audience and the candidates before the start of the forum. The moderator has the responsibility to enforce time limits and the authority to interrupt the candidates or proceedings to enforce the ground rules and format agreed to by the candidates. The moderator may restate questions received or rephrase them for clarity. The candidates will report to the League representative on the day of the taping 1/2 hour prior to the starting time. There will be no substitutes or stand-ins for candidates. If a candidate is unable to attend, a written brief statement may be submitted to the League of Women Voters to be read by the moderator. Its length cannot exceed the time allowed for a candidate in its opening statement. The order of who speaks, first, second, and so on, will either be alphabetical or determined by a drawing, and the initial responder will be rotated such that each candidate will have the opportunity to be the first to answer a question. Candidates' remarks will only address their own views, and platforms regarding the office they are seeking. No personal attacks or statements implying another candidate's views are allowed. The moderator will stop the speaker from such references and ask the candidate to keep his or her response to their own positions. Candidates will not bring charts, graphs, or other visuals during the forum. Candidates may bring paper for taking notes, data that they wish to refer to, and a copy of their opening and closing statements. They may not use electronic devices. Campaign literature may be distributed outside of the room. Candidates are not allowed to use audio or video from the forum in commercial advertising. This presentation is copyrighted 2022 by the League of Women Voters. All rights are reserved. This video must be shown in its entirety only. Candidates may be asked to sign a TV release form. The audience and candidates will not be allowed to bring campaign banners, signs, placards into the forum room. No visible candidate, campaign, or political pins, t-shirts, jackets, hats are permitted in the forum room. No flash cameras, motor-driven cameras, or other visual or sound recording devices are allowed in the forum room other than by the press, media, and forum sponsor. The audience will refrain from any vocal reactions for or against any candidate or statements made by the candidates. The audience is requested to remain silent during the forum to maintain an oasis of neutrality and may applaud only when the moderator has announced that the forum has ended. The audience is encouraged to submit written questions for the candidates. The league will supply index cards and pencils. Question reviewers selected by the league will screen audience questions for relevancy and duplication. In order to help identify pertinent local concerns and issues, one screener who is not identified pro or con regarding any of the candidates or proposals may be from the district featured in the forum. The timer for the league will hold cards visible to the candidates indicating how much time remains. When the stop sign card is shown, the speaker should end the response. Time limits on responses will be strictly observed. The cable company, Civic Center TV, will not show audience reaction shots during the forum. A wide shot of the audience before and after the forum may be allowed. So that concludes the ground rules and policies, and I think we are ready to begin. Welcome to the forum for the West Bloomfield School Board and West Bloomfield Township Library Board elections. Today is October 8, 2024. This forum will be featuring 5 candidates for the 3 seats on the West Bloomfield School Board for a 6-year term, and the 8 candidates for 6 seats on the West Bloomfield Township Library Board for a 4-year term. The sponsor of the forum is the League of Women Voters, Oakland area, and it will be live streamed and recorded by Civic Center TV. I'm Cheryl Terrio, a member of the League of Women Voters. I am not a resident of this district. The League of Women Voters is a trusted national nonpartisan political organization. Our members do hands-on work to safeguard democracy. While we never endorse a candidate, we are directly involved in shaping the important issues that keep our community strong. As a League of Women Voters member, I have the opportunity to contribute in a leadership role such as this one that has a great impact on local, state, and national issues. If you are interested in learning about how you can make a similar impact, I would encourage you to visit the website at lwvoa.org. The League of Women Voters does not endorse any candidate or political party. Views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates, and the sponsors take no responsibility. The format for this forum has been established by the League of Women Voters. We ask that the audience remain silent during the forum. Please turn off all electronic devices. The recording of this forum is copyrighted to the League of Women Voters 2024, and personal recording or pictures are not allowed. We ask that candidates answer the question with their views only and not interrupt another candidate. The questions are asked to all candidates and do not single out any one candidate. All candidates will be answering questions submitted by the audience and screened for duplication and appropriateness. And the screeners will be Deborah Flagel and Jerry Rensler. Pages will be circulating with paper and pencils for your questions. Our pages are Mike Allen and Barb Saul. Yeah. Please turn your questions into the pages. The format is as follows. All candidates will be given 1 minute for opening statements in alphabetical order. Closing statements will be 1 minute in reverse order. Candidates will have 1 minute to answer each question in rotation unless extended by the moderator. All candidates will be allowed equal time to answer questions. Our timer is Belinda Frice. The forum for the school board will take place first, followed by the forum for the library board. The candidates for West Bloomfield School Board are Julie Betty, who cannot attend but I will be reading her written statement. Terry Hoyer Compton, who also is not in attendance but has provided a written statement. Nelson Hirsch, who will not be in attendance but I will be reading his written statement. Ernestina Moore, and Kirsten Sonneville Douglas. We will begin with 1-minute opening statements, with me reading the statements of Julie Betty, Terry Hoyer Compton, and Nelson Hirsch. That will be followed by the in-person statements of Ernestina Sonneville Douglas, who will go first.
Which candidate would that be?
Oh, did I? I'm sorry.
We like each other.
Ernest,
We are two different-
okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Ernestine Moore,
Thank you.
all right, followed by Ms. Sonneville Douglas, okay. Apologies. So I'll start by reading the statement of Julie Betty. Hello, I'm Julie Betty, West Bloomfield Board of Education Secretary, and I apologize for not being able to join you this evening. I'm running again for the West Bloomfield Board of Education because I believe it is an equitable education for all students. Every child deserves the chance to succeed, regardless of their background or abilities. I focused on closing achievement gaps by introducing targeted curricula that prioritize student needs. I've also worked to build state-of-the-art learning centers and top-notch technology to improve our district's future. This hard work helped West Bloomfield rank among the top 25 best school districts in Michigan. Fiscal responsibility is another priority. When I was first elected, the fund balance was 2.7%. Presently, it is 13.5%, achieved through hard work and tough decisions, all while preserving educational programs and protecting jobs. I am also committed to fostering The next written statement is by Terry Hoyer Compton. Thank you for the invitation and opportunity to address the community tonight. Unfortunately, I have a conflict, and I appreciate you reading this on my behalf. My name is Terry Hoyer Compton, and I firmly believe we all must do our part to ensure that every child receives the best education, as they are our future leaders. I have 4 daughters who are currently enrolled in the West Bloomfield schools, and for the 12 years I've lived in the district, I have been very active in the school community. Raising a transracial adoptive family has given me a unique and important perspective. I've served on multiple district committees and PTO boards and currently sit on the board of directors for the West Bloomfield Education Foundation, which provides grants to teachers and innovative programs and materials. It would be an honor and privilege to join the West Bloomfield School Board and work to ensure that our district continues to provide both students and staff with the tools and resources they need to succeed. Thank you and have a wonderful evening. And this is the message from Nick Hirsch. I am Nelson Hirsch, also known as Nick. We have a great school district due to the values and support of our community. I have been on the school board for over 20 years. It is the best job in the world because we can create a better future by educating and building self-esteem in our children. Each child is unique, and it is our job to find out how to bring out the best in each student so they thrive. I will continue to be fiscally responsible to our residents and taxpayers, transparent, accessible, kind, and caring. I will work tirelessly, ensuring our schools provide the best education and value in a safe, nurturing environment so that we will be a destination district. This will enhance our property values and be a district our kids, our taxpayers, and our employees are proud of. I am able to assess what we are doing well and what can be changed to become even better. I remember the community entrusted me, and I respectfully ask for your vote for re-election. And next, we'll go with Ms. Ernestina Moore.
Good evening. Do you want change? I do. I'm a free thinker standing on my own platform, my own merit. I'm a frequent attendee at school board meetings and study sessions, thus I'm well aware of the current challenges the district currently faces: a $2.8 million deficit, declining enrollment, and student learning gaps. I've also took the liberty of making public comment on such topics as school safety, school shootings, and also student testing. I'm a magna cum laude graduate of Howard University and a graduate of Washington University School of Law. As a 20-plus year labor and employment attorney, I have experience representing large and small school districts, providing real-time advice and counsel during school board meetings, Open Meetings Act, FERPA, collective bargaining agreement, and union negotiations. I also believe that these skills qualifications would allow me to make an immediate impact on the board and would allow me to be uniquely qualified for this position. I ask that on or before November 5th, you vote Ernestina Moore for West Bloomfield School Board. Thank you.
I'd like to extend my gratitude to the League of Women Voters for this opportunity and to thank the community for being here tonight. My name is Kirsten Sonneville Douglas. I'm a West Bloomfield graduate, and I hold a degree in communications from Oakland University. I'm an active volunteer in my community, serving as the chairperson of Kiko Harbor Parks and Rec Commission and the board of, as a board member of the West Bloomfield Youth Assistance. I'm a mother of two. I'm active in our schools, from serving on 2 district advisory boards to selling donuts on Fridays and everything in between. Over the past 4 years, I've attended nearly every board meeting and witnessed the serious challenges that our district faces: declining enrollment, falling test scores, increased staff turnover rates, troubling projected $2.8 million operating deficit, and the board currently spending down our fund balance at an alarming rate. It is clear that we need change, and I am stepping up to drive change. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll start with the first question, starting with Ms. Douglas. What inspired you to run for school board, and how do you plan to positively impact our students and community?
So I was inspired by what happened in my community. We had a local elementary school that was slated to close. I have a community that has a different socioeconomics and needed the walkability, so I stepped up and started advocating for those students and the staff and making sure that those staff members were supported as well. Things transpired and saw that there needs to be greater transparency, discussion, and accessibility to discussions at the board table, and so that's why I'm running.
Yes, what inspired me to run is, as I indicated earlier, I'm a frequent attendee at school board meetings and study sessions, so I know the challenges the district face, and I think I can be an advocate to help push the district past the status quo, and not to mention the impact that I'll have on my community is by my presence here today. I showed up, and I will continue to show up for the students, for the parents, and the community to help push this district to be the district that I know it can and should be going forward.
For our next question, we will start with Ms. Moore. The Michigan Association of School Boards, MASB, offers professional development for school board members, including a 7-level certification program. If you are an incumbent, what is the highest certification level that you have achieved, and when did you achieve it? If you are non-incumbent, if elected, will you commit to at least achieving level 1 certification before the end of the calendar year 2025?
Well, I guess I'm already a step ahead because I've already attended some of the virtual sessions offered by the MASB, and given my profession, we are required to have continuing legal education, so this would not be a barrier for me to continue to do that should I be elected to the school board. So that is definitely a yes, that I would most definitely obtain whatever certifications are necessary to help me be a better board member and to help me to impact and have a positive role and impact for the school board and the school district as a whole. Thank you.
I too am committed to hitting level 1 by the end of the calendar year of 2025. as a lactation consultant, I have to do continuing education credits. I'm a lifelong learner, and I always exceed those, so this would be no different too. So I too commit to the continuing education. I also have started some of the education for what to do or how to run for school board, and so these programs are wonderful, and I look forward to continuing.
The next question will start with Ms. Douglas. The Building and Site Sinking Fund millage will expire in 2026. Soon, the board will need to determine the millage rate to place on an upcoming ballot proposal. Will you support a sinking fund ballot proposal with a millage increase, a decrease, or should the millage rate remain the same, and why?
I believe we have to be good stewards of our community's finances. And so with that, I would like to see a long-term facilities strategic plan so I can make data-driven decisions before I could comment on whether or not to increase or decrease that rate.
So I would say that we need to first show ourselves to be good stewards of the money that we've been given from taxpayers. And what we need to know is because this will be passed after 2017, that would allow us to use those for building improvements and security measures, which I think is very important given the rash of school shootings that have unfortunately resumed. So I think given that money that we can now put forth for that use and that purpose, I think we definitely should pass one, but to have it be an increase, I would have to make sure that, again, we are being good stewards, and that's something that we have not shown ourselves to be given the current operating budget deficit.
This question will begin with Ms. Moore. If you are faced with a tough issue as a board member, such as potential cuts to balance a budget, what kind of data would you need to help you make your decision on how to proceed?
Sure, I think that's a valid question given our current state with the operating deficit. I think you start at the top, and the top are salaries. I think the last thing we should look at is anything that would negatively impact our students' achievement success and achieving even more success than they already currently have. So I think we definitely need to take a look at the top to look at salaries, if we're top heavy on administration, but definitely not anything that would affect the retention or recruitment of teachers and staff, because those are the key roles that we have in our school district, because they are on the front lines and they are teaching our students and helping them to achieve their academic success that they so rightly deserve and should have within our school district.
I couldn't agree more with Ms. Moore's statements. I believe that we are top-heavy in our administration. They just approved themselves having a pay raise, and we currently have a projected operating deficit. So I'd like to see, as our student body decreases and we're seeing our staff decrease, I'd like to reevaluate our executive committees. That said, I also support that things that impact our classrooms, our students' education, are the last things that we should be cutting.
This question will begin with Ms. Douglas. Our community is diverse in religious and ethnicities. Many school districts are reversing their DEI executives from being candidate positions. Do you support West Bloomfield having a DEI executive, and why?
I value diversity. It's what makes us great. And so we should have support systems for diversity in voices, ideas, religion, ethnicities, and making sure that everyone feels welcome and supported. And so I support the DEI programming.
I too will support any efforts by the district in terms of DE&I, because I think the operative word in DE&I is inclusion, that we all should feel that we have a place where we belong and that we can freely express whatever our religious or whatever other beliefs that we may have. The district currently does have a program, RDJ, Religious Diversity Journey, that allows just that, for us to learn and educate ourselves on various religions while not promoting one over the other. So I think DE&I allows you to promote whatever your situation is, whatever your status is, but also remind you that you are included. And I think that's very important. It's something that the district should continue to sustain going forward.
Ms. Moore, we will begin with you. What are your plans to address the declining enrollment trend? Hopefully, answers such as reduction of administrative overhead and sale of surplus assets, not items that impact students, teachers, and staff.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question, please?
The question itself is, what are your plans to address declining enrollment? trends.
Okay, thank you. So that's great because it ties into my platform. One thing is which to increase district enrollment to retain and attract our district students. So I think it's very important that we look at why people are leaving or opting to go outside of the district. And some of the things that I've heard as I've been campaigning is that they feel that our curriculum is not enriched enough. So I think that's somewhere that we start, that we look at our curriculum, we take a hard look at how we're presenting the information to our students, the options that we have available to them. Because again, people want to move and live in a school district where there's a good, thriving school district and a plethora of schools within which to choose from. So I think we have to look at ourselves internally and not necessarily look at why people are leaving, but what can we do to get them to come. Thank you.
I think it's also important to have exit interviews to understand why people are leaving. Is it academic achievements? Is it academic rigor? Is it safety? I understand that some students and families choose to opt to go to private schools, but we've seen a decrease of families that are actually leaving this district. And so we need to take a hard look at why they are and reevaluating them. We'll have great academics, hoping that we'll have students and attracting staff and students. But I think we actually need to have honest conversations and to look at why people are leaving.
We will start with Ms. Douglas. The board seeks community input on big issues such as redistricting and facilities. How will community input affect your decisions at the board table?
I speak to this often at public comment. It's part of our philosophy. As a board member, we're the voice of the community. We are to take the input of the community, and we should bring that back to the executives, and it needs to be considered. We also should have dialogue, and there isn't any. Once you bring public comment, it dies there. And so that's something that I would bring, and also make sure that our board members are following their own board policies as well as norms.
Okay, so I promise you I didn't write these questions, but this ties again into one of the areas on my platform about parental involvement, community involvement. I think it's very important to listen to the community because that should factor into any decision that the district makes. Not that it's the decision maker, but it should be a very important factor. And we've seen examples where that hasn't occurred, and I think it's been to the district's detriment. So on a go-forward basis, I would definitely say that we listen and we open the doors for people to come and communicate for us, be it public comment or sending out an email or calling up a board member or what have you. But I think it's very important because, again, when you're making public comment, it's just that. There's no dialogue. And that's something that I've discussed extensively with Dr. Bazzi during a recent conversation surrounding school safety, that parents in the community want to hear from you. Let's have a school safety forum so that that can happen, so that that dialogue can happen and that it can actually be beneficial to everyone involved. So again, community input and involvement is very important. I think it's very something that we should do on a go-forward basis with the district that has not necessarily happened thus far.
Ms. Moore, the next question is, the West Bloomfield School District belief statement is to support each student's needs by providing the opportunities, experiences, and educational tools for their journey. Currently, 60% of the students are not proficient in reading or math. How would you address this issue?
Again, I would address it as it ties into my platform, once again, as I previously referenced about enriched curriculum. It is totally unacceptable that we have such a high number of students who are not proficient when we have so many resources available to make them that way. A test score is not significant enough such that we can't look at those scores and see what needs to be done and how we can better serve our students. What we need to do is take a very hard look at our curriculum. We need to have differentiated learnings in the classroom so that it's not so taxing on teachers to be able to teach those that may be at the higher end versus the lower end and those in between. So I think it's very important that we take steps to make sure that our enriched curriculum is such that, as community members have expressed to me, that they don't believe West Bloomfield students are getting watered down diplomas. That's unacceptable. I don't want my child or anyone else in the district to walk around with a West Bloomfield diploma and someone thinks it's watered down. We need to do better, and we should do better, and we can do better.
It saddens me to hear that people say that we've lost our elite status. That is super important when we're evaluating our educational system. It identifies our successes, but more importantly, that where we can improve, okay? So scores like MSTEP, NWEA, and the PSAT, They offer concrete data, but those aren't the only data points that we should be looking at. We should be looking at graduation rates. We should also be looking at attendance, tardiness rates, and literacy rates. And so this gives us an opportunity to improve and to show where we need to add more focus. We celebrate the increases with the testing, but we're really quick to dispute the test as well when it doesn't favor us. So I would focus on not cherry picking, asking for all of the data so we can make data-driven decisions and so we can support our students and our staff.
Ms. Douglas, we will begin this question with you. After review and discussion on significant issues, the board operates by a majority vote. When the majority vote is different from your position, how would you manage the situation moving forward?
This goes back to the diversity of opinions and thoughts. We all come to the table with different opinions, different life experiences. And so what I'd like to see is more board dialogue. It's supposed to happen at the board table. Having attended nearly every meeting over the last 4 years, it rarely is there. There are a few board members that actually will have that dialogue. And so if elected, or when elected, how about that? I am committed to sharing and contributing with meaningful dialogue, asking those questions so that I can contribute. And again, but I am only one voice, and I understand that and support the majority.
I think this is a very interesting question because currently the district has a voting block. And that voting block is indicative of the fact that there aren't diverse ideas, that there's not dialogue, and that there's not conversations happening. And I think there needs to be more balance on the board. And I would bring that balance to the board because, again, you have the diversity of ideas, but that doesn't mean that one person is right, one person is wrong. It's a dialogue. A board is a conglomeration of people coming together with their own thought processes, their own thought ideas to come up with a workable solution that is in the best interest of the students. That should be first and foremost in anyone's mind and anyone's thought processes and anyone's decision-making. What is going to be best for our school, our students, and our district? Thank you.
Ms. Moore, research tells us that a long-tenured superintendent positively impacts student achievement. What specifically would you do to develop and sustain positive relationships at the board table?
Well, I think as I've already stated, is to have dialogue and to be willing and open to listen to other people's thoughts and ideas, even if they differ from yours. Because I think it's very important because sometimes people in long tenured positions, and no pun intended, they don't learn the lessons that they always should. They take their position for granted because they feel like they're entitled to hold and continue to hold that position. So I think it's very important, especially as you're relating to a superintendent, that you make that person, hold that person accountable. There's an accountability aspect when you have that sort of role. It's not given. So I think it's very important to hold the superintendent accountable, to engage in dialogue with him or her, and also to make sure, once again, you're keeping the thoughts, ideas of your community, your students, and your parents at the forefront of any discussion.
I think it's an opportunity for collaboration. I think also open dialogue, open communication, diversity of thoughts, ideas, questions, but supporting, because we all have the same goal, and it's the success of our students. And so I do believe that we need to make sure that we're holding the superintendent accountable, that is the role of a board, and making sure that we're establishing clear, measurable goals for the superintendent and holding them accountable for it, but making sure that we're supporting them to make sure that they're able to be successful.
This question will begin with Ms. Douglas. There is a long history of racism, discrimination, and segregation in our country, which adversely impacts economic outcomes. West Bloomfield has more than 30% of its students identified as economically disadvantaged. How does the district service this population of students?
Can you repeat the last part of the question again, please?
How does the district service this population of students?
I live in Kego Harbor, and my community is one of those with a very diverse socioeconomic, very socioeconomic diversity. And so I know programming like Blessings in the Backpack, but I believe that that actual name just changed, so I apologize what the new name is. But making sure that we're supporting those families with food. We want to make sure that children can focus on education. So I know that the district and actually the state provide funding so that we can have free breakfast and free lunches, because that way the kids aren't focused on their stomachs. And so I believe that our district does a great job at supporting our students. Do I think there's always room for improvement? Always.
So I think the district would service them like they do anyone else. Your socioeconomic status should not define who you are or the treatment that you receive. As a longstanding board member of the West Bloomfield Youth Assistance, I'm aware of some of the partnerships that the district has, and that's one of them. The West Bloomfield Youth Assistance, they partner with the school districts to offer support and counseling to families to help with any deficiency or truancy issues. And I think that's very important that the support is there. But in terms of how we service them, again, we service them like we would anyone else, because their status does not and should not ever define who they are and the treatment that they receive.
Ms. Moore, starting with you, what are the biggest opportunities for change that you prioritize as a school board member?
Can you repeat that?
What are the biggest opportunities for change that you would prioritize as a school board member?
I think as a school board member, we have to start looking internally, if elected, that what do we need to do? How do we need to change? And I think, having been a regular attendee at board meetings and study sessions, I think it hinges on collaboration. I think we need to be more open to other people's ideas, their thoughts, their differences of opinion, and see how we can channel that to come about with a workable solution, again, that's most beneficial to our students, our district, our parents, and even our faculty and staff. Because again, the school board serves a very vital role within the community. They can help the district become thriving if it's not already. Because I think our school board, I think we have to acknowledge that we need vision, that we need to have resilience, and that we need to have focus and do what it takes to push our district past the status quo, to make us to be the district that we can and should be as we have been in the past. So I think it's very important that we take advantage of those opportunities and seize them when we can to help us make and push our district forward.
I agree. I think that we need to do a better job of communicating with the greater West Bloomfield community. It's not just parents, it's the tax base, right? We need to let you know when we want to celebrate. We also need to let you know when we need your support. And I don't mean when we just want your tax dollars. We need to be fiscally responsible. We need to be good stewards of the money. And so we need to make sure that we are evaluating, having strategic goals, strategic plans before we come to you asking for your support. But that means that we need collaboration. We need support when it comes to programming as well. And so letting us have that opportunity, but two-way dialogue as well at the board table. And having attended nearly every board meeting for the last 4 years, I've seen that that's not there. And so that's something that I would encourage. Also, making sure that we're focusing, again, back on that academic achievement, okay? Right now, my school data is reporting that 64% are not proficient of our students. And that, to me, is not okay. And so that's an opportunity for as well.
Starting with Ms. Douglas, what strategies would you use to handle conflict or disagreements within the board while maintaining a respectful and professional atmosphere?
I was taught that you have one mouth and two ears. And so making sure that we're listening, right? We're coming together. Again, back to our goal is the same. We want the success for our district, success for our students, and to support our staff. And so having open dialogue, having communication, and listening to other people's opinions, but sharing yours as well.
Well, as an attorney, I am well-versed in conflict resolution, and I deal with that on a day-to-day basis. Today was no different. And I think it's that skill set that would allow me to be successful and make an impact on the board if elected, because again, you can only control yourself. And people have often say, if there are two fools, how do you know the difference? So I'm not a fool, and I plan on doing the best of my ability on the school board. I am not here for infighting. I'm not here for cherry picking. I'm not here for favoritism. I am here to make this district better and do whatever I can to lend myself to that effort. There is no place for being disrespectful, in any efforts to humiliate anyone, to be belittling or disparaging. That is not the purpose. It should never be the conduct displayed by any board member at any time, be it in a board meeting or outside in the public.
Starting with Ms. Moore. The Michigan School Index, as published by the state of Michigan, has ranked West Bloomfield High School in the bottom 1/2 of 1/3 of Oakland County high schools. What are your plans to address this issue?
Again, it goes back to my platform of enriching our curriculum. Again, as I've been out canvassing and speaking with constituents and those in the district that have schools in the district and those that have opted to take their kids out, I think it's very important that we look internally at our curriculum, because oftentimes what people are looking at is what's offered at a different school, whatever their preference is. I don't think that anyone living in West Bloomfield should opt to take their children to another school unless it's purely their choice, not because the kids are not proficient, not because we're not properly utilizing our resources, not because the board is being a good steward of their financial responsibilities that have been entrusted to them. We should definitely make every effort that we can to push this district forward, to make sure that our children are proficient, because as our motto states, the portrait of a graduate. The portrait of the graduate, in my mind, is someone that is proficient, someone that can conduct themselves in the workplace or in a higher education setting. So again, I think it's very important that we always keep at the forefront of our mind and decision-making that of our students and how they're going to represent us within themselves and out in the world. Thank you.
Going back to what I said before, data is important for us to help evaluate our systems. And so using those data points, but again, looking at attendance as well as tardiness rates, truancy, that has been impacting our successes. And so we really need to use those data points to reevaluate, find how we can support our staff, right? I would love to see smaller classroom sizes, right? That shows that we can have better successes if we have better teacher to student ratios. And so looking at the data so we can make data-driven decisions.
Ms. Douglas, this next question is under the framework of equitable access to opportunities. How do we provide a mentally safe learning environment for all students?
Making sure that everyone feels safe and heard. And that's everyone. All students have a place here in West Bloomfield. All students need to be supported and heard.
Can you repeat the question, please?
How do we provide a mentally safe learning environment for all students?
So I think we continue to support social emotional learning throughout the school district. And I think it's very important for you to note that the middle school just recently lost its mental health specialist. So that's something that we need to take greater steps, because at the middle school level, those kids go on to high school. So at the middle school level is a very critical time, just having had a middle school student, that they're dealing with a lot of things, internal and external pressures, and you want to be able to support that individual, that student, in whatever efforts that they need to, again, make sure that they're getting the support that the district should be able to offer. So I think it's very critical, again, as we've been discussing, being good stewards of our finances. How do we find a way to get that individual back into the school to support that learning effort, to make sure that our kids are not just being educated from an achievement standpoint, but socially, that they know how to function within the classroom and function within society itself?
The last question from the audience, we'll start with a response from Ms. Moore. If elected to the board, what would you hope your first year to look like?
If elected to the board, I want my first year to be successful, as I think anyone would, but I think we have to be realistic. How much can one person do? As I indicated earlier, there's a voting block in the district, and part of that voting block is that we need to make sure that we can penetrate that voting block to make sure that we all have the same mindset, because again, one person, one vote. The board is made up of 7 individuals, and to get a majority across, it has to be 4 people. So you have to have 4 people who are able to sit down, willing to discuss, and not necessarily go along with what the status quo is. And that's why I said initially that I'm that person. I'm willing to push us past the status quo, because again, this is not a social club. Me being elected to the school board is not to elevate my social status within the community. It's to let people know that I'm here willing, ready, and able to serve.
What I hope it looks like is to be a contributing member to this community, to be supported and to offer support as well, to listen to the community, to bring the community feedback to the board, to be the voice of the community, and to have the meaningful dialogue, asking for the meaningful questions, and I'm looking forward to learning and to being, again, contributing member to that board.
I'm going to have one last question and combine two because I think they're very important to the audience. And we'll start with Ms. Douglas. There are indications that some parents and the middle school students in particular have reported physical violence in the schools, and there are also concerns in regards to truancy. How should the issues of school safety and truancy be addressed?
So for safety, I have a middle schooler, and there was a recent threat. And so I think we need to make sure that we're encouraging when you see something, hear something, you say something, and I couldn't be more proud of my son for actually standing up and doing so. But we also could do that better as a community as well. If someone's being bullied, stepping up for that. And so we should model, and as a board member, I will model that behavior. Truancy. We have issues with attendance. We have issues with tardiness, and having gone into volunteer at 9:30, there's 5-6 kids coming in late. And so we need to figure out how can we best support our families? How do we have that conversation to say it is important for every kid to be in that classroom and finding the support services that we can help ensure that the kids can be at the school.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Some parents have reported, especially for middle school students, incidents of physical violence in the school. There are also concerns in regards to truancy. What policy would you recommend relative to school safety and truancy?
Okay. So I'm glad I asked you to repeat the question because I think there are policies already in place regarding that, but I think the underlying answer that the person is looking for that posed that question is safety, because your kid should feel safe. You as a parent should feel safe when you drop your child off at school. And when I volunteered at the middle school when my daughter was there, one of the parents shared a very terrible example with me that her daughter was being bullied, that there were 6 girls waiting outside the classroom to beat her up, that she was slapped while she was there. Unfortunately, this is not uncommon. But again, this is something that we need to tackle head on and not put our head in the sand and think that it's going to go away, because it's not. As I indicated earlier, the mental health specialist at the middle school is no longer there. We as a board, we need to take this on because, again, school safety is an issue. We don't know what's troubling these individuals or these children, but we need to provide a safe space because that's what helps learning. We should not put our kids in an environment where their learning is hindered in any way, shape, or form.
That concludes the time for questions for the school board candidates. The candidates will now be given 1 minute to make a closing statement in the reverse order of opening statements, beginning with candidate Douglas.
Again, I'd like to extend my gratitude to the League of Women Voters, the community, and for Ms. Moore for being here tonight. With over 25 years of project management experience and the mother of a child in the district, I would bring a different perspective to the board. I am committed to the success of the entire district. Our schools require focused leadership, setting smart goals and making data-driven decisions to improve student achievement, enhance safety, and ensuring that we attract and retain students and staff. I am committed to transparency, accountability, fiscal responsibility, access to decision-making, and academic success. There's a lot of work to be done, and I'm ready. I would be honored to receive your vote. So honor before November 5th, vote Kirsten Sonneville Douglas.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters and all of you who turned out tonight. We have heard a lot about what we think and what our thoughts are. And in closing, I'd like to say this. The school board needs balance and it needs change. We need to have people that are going to hold everyone accountable, ourselves, the superintendent, and anyone else involved in the administration. I think it's very important to know that our tagline says the portrait of a graduate. I think we need to look at that portrait. What does it look like right now, today, and how should it look? And that's what's important when you cast your vote on or before November 5th, someone that's going to look at that picture and make it different and make it better. As I have outlined, some of my platform is very indicative of doing just that. So I think on or before November 5th, when you go to the poll, you think that the district needs more accountability, more transparency. The district needs Ernestina Moore for West Bloomfield School Board. Thank you.
Candidates. And we will conclude the school board candidate forum and begin the library board forum at 7.